Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of the Savvy Painter Podcast. I'm your host, Antrice Wood, and if you've been listening for a while, welcome back. And if you are new here, I am so glad that you have found me. Savvy Painter is the podcast for artists who want practical, tactical tips to create a meaningful art practice that is both fulfilling and supports you. I want to start today with something I hear constantly, not occasionally, constantly. Artists come to me and it really doesn't matter if they've been painting for 2 years or 20. Somewhere in the first few conversations, this comes out. There's this belief that there's a rule book somewhere, a guide that says exactly how you're supposed to do this thing that we do. A guide that says exactly how you're supposed to build a practice, when you're supposed to share your work, how you're supposed to share your work, what the right way to price it is and sell it, and every single thing that you can think of. And underneath this belief, underneath all of it, is this sneaky little idea that everybody else got the rule book, except you. And I'm here to tell you something. There is no rule book. Everybody's just making it up. There never was a rule book. What there is, what I've been building through years of working with artists and through my own practice, is a map. And today I want to show you how to read it. So we're going to start with the GPS. I'm going to talk about the seasons of being an artist. And I'm going to talk about the zones that you might find yourself in. And we'll do a little recap on the create spiral, which if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you might recognize that phrase. If you haven't, it's all right. I got you. I'll link to it in the show notes. But you'll get enough of an idea of what the create spiral is just by listening to this episode. But if you want to go deeper, I'll put links in the show notes. Okay, let's start with the GPS. And I'm going to start with a fun fact for you. Dr. Gladys West was an African-American mathematician working for the U.S. Navy, and she made one of the most essential contributions to the GPS that we use today, every day. She created high-precision mathematical models of the Earth's shape. And in order to get the results that we want, a GPS requires extremely accurate knowledge of the Earth's size and gravitational variations to calculate positions correctly. Dr. Gladys West's calculations made accurate global positioning actually possible. I know. You had no idea this was going to turn into a science lesson, did you? But it did. Also, happy Black History Month. I love this story so much because thanks to the brilliant mind of Dr. Gladys West, we can precisely determine where we are. And that's the most essential step in getting anywhere at all. Here's what I mean by that. A GPS can route you anywhere in the world, and it can get you from where you are now to where you want to go. It can navigate around traffic, it reroutes when you miss a turn, and it can do all of that in seconds. But it can't do any of it until it knows where you currently are. It needs a starting point in order to function. So what does this have to do with your painting practice? Everything. This is the whole problem I see with artists who've been feeling lost or stuck or like they've been, I'm giving major air quotes here, like they've been doing it wrong. They've been trying to read a map without knowing what their current location is. They have a destination in mind. Maybe they want a body of work that they're proud of. Maybe they want a practice that feels sustainable and fulfilling, or collectors who love what they make. But the art GPS, that's what I'm just going to call it for now. It's called the art GPS. It just keeps spinning and spinning and spinning because it doesn't know where they are on the map. So before we talk about where you're going, I want to give you a way to figure out where you are right now so that you have an accurate starting point for your own art. Before we start, just give a little fist bump in the sky to Dr. Gladys West, because without her work, we would all literally be lost, and I wouldn't have language for what I'm about to share with you. So with much gratitude, here's where this goes. Okay, so the first layer of the map is what I'm calling the seasons of your art practice. And there's 4 of them, just like in nature. So all we really do in our art practice is we make art, we share it, and we sell it. And then finally, we rest. So the making season, this is the season of pure creation. You're in the studio, you are exploring, you're discovering, you're creating new work. You might be experimenting, playing around and pushing your skills, your ideas. And your primary job in this season is to make the work. And for most of us, this is the absolute favorite season to be in. When you're in the making season, roughly, and there's lots of wiggle room, roughly 80% of your energy is going towards creating something. It's going towards the canvas. It's going towards the practice, the work itself. There might be a little bit of attention going to other things, like you might be thinking about where the work might go eventually, but that's not your main focus or priority in this season. And it's so important to understand that this is an actual season, because once you understand this and you understand the other seasons, then you don't need to feel bad about not doing other things other than making art, okay? The next season is the sharing season, and this is the season when you start putting the work out in front of people. Just showing it to another human being. We're not selling it yet. We're just metaphorically or literally holding your work up and saying, hey, look at what I made. And that might look like submitting to shows or posting your work online somewhere, like social media or your website. It's just simply letting people into the conversation around the work. It might even be, for some of us, just the act of showing it to a single person or a small trusted group. Your job here is exposure and connection, letting other people see what you created. So that's the sharing season. And then the selling season is where the transactional piece comes in. So this is pricing, galleries, direct sales, commissions. I would even include gifting your work in here. It's the act of taking the work that you just made and putting it into somebody else's hands, usually with an exchange with it. The selling season, there might still be making work. You might still be creating, because honestly, there's always creating. There's always you in your studio making something happening, usually. But in the selling season, the emphasis shifts towards the more business side of the work. In some way, shape, or form, you are saying, hey, this is what I made. Here's what it costs. Would you like to buy it? For the record, you're not likely to use those exact words, but you're getting that message across. The final season is rest, which is not the absence of other seasons, it's its own season. So what I mean by that is sometimes we just think, well, I'm not making and I'm not sharing and I'm not selling, so this must be rest. Rest really is its own season, and it has its own legitimate, necessary place on the map. Think for a second about what winter actually is in nature. It's not nothing. It's a period of rest and incubation. The ground, the earth is doing something underneath the surface. It's preparing, it's consolidating, it's getting ready for what comes next, which is spring. But most often you can't see it from the outside. Rest in your art practice often works in the same way. And I think it's important to recognize that this season can be a few weeks or it can be a few months. Sometimes you consciously choose it. You recognize your need to step back and you make the active decision to do that. This is what I recommend for you, that you actually build time in for your own rest and recuperation. But sometimes your body and your brain just kind of force it on you. You don't get a vote, it just happens. Either way, it's the same season and it's doing the same work. Kind of. We'll get into more detail about that later. The conscious decision to do it is what gives you the actual rest. You can say that you're resting and actually not get any rest. But here's what I want you to understand. Every artist I know is in one of these seasons right now. Maybe in a transition between two of them, but you are somewhere in this landscape. And once you know where you are, so much of the pressure, that those thoughts that say, I should be doing this by now, or I should be able to make the art and share it and sell it all in the same moment. The I should be doing this by now, or I should be better than this, or I should have it together by now. The guilt about what's not getting done, that all starts to settle down once you recognize where you are. So if you're in the making season, you're not behind on selling. You are in the making season. And if you're in the selling season, you're not disorganized because you're not painting as much. You are in the selling season. And when that season is over and you're feeling exhausted, your whole system is asking for that recovery, just like winter asks it of nature. And here's what I find so interesting about that. In nature, winter is a macro period of rest, right? So it's the whole season. It's, for most areas in the world, it's that whole 3 months of the earth winding down and getting some rest. I know some places it's 6 months. I see you. But there are also micro periods of rest built into every single day. That's when we sleep or take a nap, the quiet hour in the afternoon when nothing really is happening on the outside, but your unconscious and your conscious mind is integrating. Those small daily rests are just as essential as the big ones, and you cannot function without them. You literally can't live without them. So your art practice has those layers too. The season of rest, the macro, where you take some time and just allow your mind and your body to relax and integrate and not force yourself into being productive. And the daily recovery is built into every week, every studio session, every creative cycle. Both of them are real. Both of them matter a lot. And neither one of them is you being lazy or you not being a real artist or whatever it is that your brain wants to try to tell you. Okay, so to recap, the first layer of this map that we're building is the seasons. The making art, sharing art, selling art, and rest season. This is kind of what you are doing. It's the actions that you are taking. And then the second layer helps you orient your emotional terrain. This layer helps you understand your experience of what you're doing so that you know when to keep doing what you're doing, when you're ready to take a bigger risk, or when you need to ease up and give yourself a little bit of a break. So I call these the three zones, the comfort zone. This all started actually with a neon green Post-it note inside Grow Studio. So just picture a bright green Post-it note with 3 concentric circles drawn in a thick black Sharpie, and you've pretty much got what this is. It's that simple. That's the whole thing. That's what we use and we keep coming back to, but it is so powerful. So if you're thinking about those 3 concentric circles, the center circle is your comfort zone. And the center circle, your comfort zone, is the one that you always want to start from, in my opinion. It's familiar territory. You know what you're doing. You feel safe. You're regulated. You can relax. You can recharge. You can breathe. You're not feeling anxious. You're just feeling like you. A lot of artists feel guilty about the time spent here. And I think that's because there's so much language in our culture about push yourself outside of your comfort zone. You got to take risks, and you do, but I like to encourage calculated risks. Going back into your comfort zone doesn't mean that you're slacking off. It really doesn't. Your circle of comfort is where you recover after you've stretched. It's not something that you need to avoid. It is a huge resource that is what makes you capable of going outside of it taking risks, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so the second circle is your growth zone. And think of this as when it's a productive stretch. It might feel a little bit uncomfortable when you move from your comfort zone into the growth zone. It will feel just a little bit uncomfortable by nature, but that discomfort is just like a little bit like, I've never done this before, but it's not overwhelming. It doesn't shut you down. And this is where real development and growth happens. This is where when you move from the things that you know how to do and you kind of stretch into maybe I could do this, I think I could figure this out, you're kind of dipping your toe out of the circle of comfort and into the growth zone. You're kind of like, now you're standing in your comfort zone and you might be just like putting one foot out, or maybe you're just putting a toe out, and you might do this with techniques in your art. You might do this with skills. You might do this with your willingness to be seen. This happens in any of the seasons that we just talked about. But this idea of this is where I'm really comfortable and now I'm going to push myself a little bit outside of that is where your growth is going to come from. And then there's kind of like a range in that growth zone. Like you might, in some things that you're working on, you might feel like, I can really only just put my toe out and feel okay about this. So I'm going to do that now. And then I'm going to come back into my comfort zone. But the outermost ring, I call it the zone of terror. If you go too far out or too far and too fast, when you're out there, your nervous system starts to shut down. And that's when you might experience some form of fight, flight, or freeze. And so what that actually can feel like is your inner critic starts to get really loud, or you might just stop working. So that would be like the freeze mode. Most artists who've been feeling completely stuck have pushed themselves out into this zone of terror without realizing it, without meaning to, and without realizing it. And they are stuck out there because they don't know how to come back. And so here's the insight, and this is something that we spend a lot of time with in Growth Studio, is you cannot keep pushing out of your comfort zone. You can't keep pushing further and further out into the growth zone indefinitely. The artists who grow the most consistently are the ones who know how to come back into their circle of comfort, actually rest there, recharge, kind of assess what just happened, right? So when you're in your comfort zone, you have access to all of your higher levels of thinking and your cognitive thinking. And so you are able to rest and recharge your batteries, and then also assess whatever that risk was that you just took, make decisions about it so that you can go back out again fully resourced. Rest is recovery, and recovery is what makes the next stretch possible or the next risk that you take, right? So like I said, we are constantly practicing this in Growth Studio, and it's one of the most effective tools for growth. So that is the zones. Collectively, we'll just call them the zones. And then within this map, the third layer is the create spiral. And this one took me the longest, I think, to articulate. If you've been listening to The Savvy Painter for a while, you might remember the series I did on this several months ago. It was a while back. I did one episode per phase of the create spiral, which I'm going to run through in just a moment. So if you're new here, welcome. And you might want to go back and find those episodes and listen to them, but you're going to get a good enough idea of what it is just by listening to this. So you don't have to stop this episode. You can keep listening. Okay, here's the thing about the create spiral. It's not a checklist, and it's not a system that you need to follow step by step. It's just a description of what naturally happens as you move through your practice with awareness. So it goes like this. The first phase of the create spiral, and this is an upward spiral, right? So we go through this spiral and we just keep cycling up and up and up. The first phase of the create spiral is the C, which stands for curiosity. So something catches your attention, and it might be an idea, it might be a subject, it might be a question, it might be just the way the light is hitting the glass on your table.
you don't really know where it's going, and that is perfect. This is where you just feel that pull and that sense of curiosity, and your unconscious mind is kind of like getting all jittery and all excited because it's like, ooh, this is something I want to like pick up and examine. And then the next phase of the create spiral is resistance. Because oftentimes, almost always, almost immediately, or it could be eventually, resistance shows up. And resistance is the voice that says, that's not good enough. Like, who cares about the glass on the table? You can't, you shouldn't, or who do you think you are to do this? I've done a couple episodes on resistance also, and I can link to those in the show notes too. Resistance shows up for all of us. Resistance is part of the deal. It's going to show up. And the most important thing is just to recognize it, acknowledge it, and keep going anyway. I think of it like having tea with Mara, and if you don't know that story, you are welcome. Go Google it. It's a really good one. Keep listening to this episode, though, but it's a great story. Just Google Tea with Mara. The third phase of the create spiral is explore, the exploration phase. So explore is where you follow all the tangents, you let your unconscious mind go wide and free, and if you have any ADD tendencies at all, like I do, this is the phase where you let them just go all out and have fun with it. The way my brain works when I'm in this phase is it's like, I don't know, you guys remember those rubber balls, like the super balls that like are super bouncy, and you could like take one and throw it in a room and it will just like bounce off of walls. I feel like that's how my brain goes when I'm in the exploration mode. You're just allowing yourself to follow any idea you have about how you want to execute this idea, what materials you might want to use. You're just like letting that go all out. It's very similar to the curiosity phase, but it has its own kind of texture because it's more active and it's more committed because you've already gone through that resistance phase, and now you're like, yeah, I'm doing this. I'm going all in on that glass on the table. So these are important phases to recognize because this is what helps you move through your creative cycle. And then the A in create, it's an acronym, right? So we've got curiosity, resistance, exploration. And then the A, I called it before I called it attunement, but I think actually absorb is a better term for it. So I might just change that to absorb right now. But this is a quieter phase. And I think absorb is so much better because even when I explained it, it was always closer to the idea that you learned something, you developed a skill, you had a realization, and now you're letting all of that settle into your process and into your own philosophy, and your unconscious mind is likely connecting dots, and it's just kind of like, oh, now I really understand the power of that idea that I thought of, or now I really understand like the depth of this painting of the glass on the table, right? And I have a glass on the table in front of me, so there you go. But you're really understanding why that spoke to you personally so much and why it relates to your overall voice and the way that you are as a painter in general, just the fact that you notice that. So this phase can feel a little bit disorienting sometimes because you're not visibly doing anything. You're just letting all those dots connect. And you're absorbing what you experienced in a deep core way. So trust this phase, even when it feels like nothing is happening. It's a really, really important one. And speaking of trust, trust is the T in create. So this is number 5 in the create spiral. In the trust phase, you make a decision now that you've absorbed the experience, the idea, and those dots have connected. Now the trust comes. And this one is so often underestimated because it's one of the most powerful insights I think artists have, especially in Growth Studio, because we talk about it a lot. But when we build this muscle of self-trust, you give yourself a gift that ripples out into all areas of your life. So this trust phase is really is about everything that has come before, that I can trust my curiosity. I can trust that I can experience resistance and not fall prey to it. I trust myself to explore, and that my exploration, my curiosity has validity to it. And then as that gets absorbed into your core, the trust part of it is now it's like, yeah, this is part of how I create. And you basically just own that, and it just feels really, really good. And then the next phase is expansion. So you take all of that. So the final E in create, you take it all to the next level, because you've just gone through all of that I just described. And now it's another opening. And once you've learned something, the expansion really is you've answered some questions, and now you're probably going to have even more questions because you have more knowledge about the idea, or you have more knowledge about the skills that you've just learned doing the last piece that you did, for example. If you're in the making phase, you've just learned this new skill and you've absorbed it and you trust that you have this skill. And so now you're going to have more questions about what can I do with this skill? If you are in the sharing, for example, you might realize like, hey, I can post things on Instagram and I don't die, and I trust myself to do that, and I feel confident with that. So now I'm going to expand that and try something different, or I'm going to take that to a new place. And same thing with selling and with rest. Yeah, we expand with rest because that's where everything comes together. You are in one of these phases right now, and whatever phase you're in, I want you to know that it's the right one for where you are. There is no phase that you should have skipped to, and no phase means that you are behind. This is an upward spiral, and we are all already in it. So this is the landscape that we're in, and we have this GPS and we have these seasons. And so here's what I want to invite you to do when you finish listening to this episode. Just sit with this one question. What season am I in right now? Am I making art? Am I sharing art? Am I selling art? Or am I in a rest season? Not which season do I want to be in, not which season should I be in, just where am I actually right now? That is you orienting with the GPS. That's you giving your map your current location. And once you have that, then everything else can start to fall in place. Over the next couple episodes, I'm going to go deeper into some of the concepts that I've explained in this, so stay tuned for that. But what I want to leave you with is this. Somewhere out there, there's a version of you who has already done the thing that you're wanting to do. There's a version of you who started exactly where you are right now, who has gone through the messy middle of doing the thing that you want to do, whether that is a single painting, whether that's a series of painting, whether that's getting into a show, whether that is the career that you're thinking of with your art. And that version of you has been through the doubts, the false starts, those uncomfortable moments where they felt like they didn't know where they were going or what they were doing. And that version of you came out on the other side with work that they are proud of and a practice that is fulfilling and sustainable. And right now, you may not be able to see exactly how they got there from where you currently are standing at this moment, and that's okay. That version of you is not waiting for you to figure it out. That version of you is already there on the other side. And all the work that you're doing right now, the noticing, the showing up, the small risks, the small bets, the small baby steps that you're taking every day, that's moving you towards that future version of yourself. And that future version of yourself is just waiting for you to be there so that you can see how you did it. Okay, that's what I have for you this week. Have a beautiful week, and I will talk to you soon.